This is the tale of a ruthless, mighty king from a dystopian world who's been reborn into a medieval ice sky realm. As a newborn, he awakens to find his parents gazing at him with pure joy and affection. They marvel at how his tiny face mirrors their own, overjoyed by the arrival of their newest family member. Father Reynolds instantly names him Arthur and demands that the little guy call him Papa. Meanwhile, Mother Alice feels Arthur's too young for such a title. Arthur answers with an empty baby stare, which Reynolds takes as a sign of a profound emotional bond. As his playful parents fuss over him, Arthur silently wonders who these people really are and why they claim to be his guardians. If they truly are who they appear to be, it means he died in his previous life and has somehow been reincarnated with all his memories intact. Staring up at the glittering night sky, Arthur can hardly believe that after conquering worlds and winning endless battles, the gods have reduced him to a feeble infant. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, not only must he endure burping, but he dreads wearing diapers and constantly fears being hurt. He can only clench his tiny fist in defense. Reynolds notices and gently slips a finger under Arthur's hand to show Alice just how much their son adores him. In a clumsy bid to move, Arthur pushes too hard and ends up soiling himself. As his mom hurries to clean him up, he stares blankly, silently regretting every twist of fate that led him to this mortifying moment. The humiliation nearly brings him to tears. He wishes this bizarre nightmare would end. Yet he knows he must face this harsh new reality. Putting his personal shame aside, Arthur soon witnesses something even more astonishing. His father effortlessly summons magic to bolster his strength. Suddenly, a small rock hits his dad's head, and his mom rushes to help him. This spectacular display fascinates Arthur, who's never encountered magic in his previous life. Determined to learn more, he realizes he must first grow up. On another front, Reynolds heads into the forest and overpowers a wild beast with his empowering magic. Not long after, a group of his friends stops by, marking the beginning of an entirely new chapter in his extraordinary journey. When Reynolds returns from hunting, Arthur can't help but wonder if this society lets everyone own weapons. If so, there must be a certain level of danger out there, and he figures it's only smart to pick up some abilities as fast as he can. Arthur has a ton of questions he can't ask yet, but despite his confusion, he treasures these pure, priceless moments with his parents. In his previous life, Arthur never knew a peaceful night's sleep because enemies were always trying to take him out. Now that he's finally experiencing calm, he gradually gets used to his new reality. After days, weeks, or maybe even months pass, Arthur learns to crawl and soon scampers over to a mirror just to admire his new look. With his crawling skills and better control over his limbs, he sneaks out of his crib when his parents aren't around and makes his way to the library. There, he grabs a book to learn more about this strange world and discovers that the continent he's born on is called Dicathan. Dicathan is divided into 3 kingdoms: the Darv Kingdom, where dwarves live; the Elenwar Kingdom, where elves rule deep within a forest; and the Sapin Kingdom, the human realm, which is Arthur's home. Unlike his previous world where anyone could seize power by killing the former King Arthur's nation, is a monarchy with a throne passed down through family lines. After picking up the basics of this new world, Arthur searches for a book on magic. With a struggle against his tiny baby arms, he manages to pull one from the shelf. Holding the book, he can't help but reflect on how much more advanced his old life was compared to this one. This book is meant to explain to study magic, what the locals call mana, a force passed down through generations that appears in just 1 out of every 100 people. Moreover, there are only 2 types of mana here: augmenting, which enhances the body's abilities, and conjuring, which lets the user project and control mana at will. While reading this, he recalls his mother's earlier healing powers, which clearly confirm she is a conjurer, even though everyone with mana possesses a mana core that most spellcasters access at the start of puberty. Once they master it, they can become mages. Having read this, Arthur finds it akin to the concept of Kai, which he knows well. However, he doubts whether such knowledge could ever serve as a weapon for him, given his wannabe warrior nature. At that instant, he summons his inner Kai and is about to reach a new level when his mother Alice interrupts him. She lifts him up like the precious little one he is and examines him closely. At first, he thinks she's figured him out, but no, she's merely detected the truth. He definitely soiled himself, and the odor isn't subtle at all. While Alice goes to change his diapers, Arthur is distraught by how much his body feels like a prison. He vows to gain more power. Later, Alice spends time recording details of Arthur's life and is delighted by his progress in this world. Yet she is troubled that he has never smiled at them, a thought that saddens her. She looks out the window to find her husband Reynolds teaching Arthur how to use a sword. Reynolds is eager to share Arthur's improvements, but she is angry with him for instructing their young son in such a dangerous skill. She believes he is far too young to handle a sword and scolds her husband loudly. Meanwhile, Arthur watches them intently, using their interactions as a framework to understand the structure of marriage, even as he begins to suspect that the world they live in might be ruled by women. Later that day, Alice takes Arthur to the market, and he is thrilled by everything he sees. Every item he beholds seems like a lesson waiting to be learned. He even gets to observe magic up close, which he finds extremely enlightening. On the way back, as he gradually drifts to sleep, he reflects on how much his family has helped him. Eventually, they return home and Alice carries him to his room. After a while, she chatters about how delighted she is whenever he sneaks out of bed to read, and how curious he gets while at the market. She believes he inherited these traits from his father Reynolds, just like him. She even muses that he might one day set off to explore the world, though she hopes he'll live a more tranquil life. The next day, Arthur watches his father work his magic and is thrilled at the idea of learning up close from him. She assures him that Reynolds is only getting started and urges him to watch even more intently. At that moment, Reynolds boosts his magic, pulling off some impressive advanced maneuvers. Observing this, Arthur immediately deduces that his father is an augmenter. Pumped to try a trick of his own, his daydream is abruptly halted when his mom announces it's bedtime. As she carries him to his room, he spots a book on the shelf and keeps pointing at it, pleading loudly for a chance to read it. After flashing his irresistibly cute face for a moment, she finally relents and lets him read for a bit. While he's engrossed in the book, he reminds himself of all the knowledge he's absorbed in his quest to form his own mana core. Concentrating hard, he channels mana from different parts of his body to a single point. After a while, just when his parents assume he's finally asleep, a loud explosion erupts from inside the house. In that instant, Reynolds leaps into action to protect Alice, and in the process, ends up with burns on his back. After checking that Alice is safe, both parents suddenly remember they left Arthur behind. Hurriedly, they dash into the house, only to be stunned by the sight of Arthur floating in midair. They stand there utterly speechless as he slowly descends to the ground. Just then, the roof begins to cave in. Being just a child, Arthur couldn't dodge in time, but his parents quickly shield him from what could have been a fatal fall. Soon afterward, tears stream down their faces, and for the first time, Arthur finds himself crying too, realizing that Alice and Reynolds would do anything to keep him safe, a sense of security he never experienced in his past life. The story kicks off by giving us a glimpse into Arthur's past life, when he was known as King Grey. Back then, a royal servant was caught trying to assassinate him, and by law, the man should have been executed without question. Instead, the king's council chose to exile him and his entire family back to his homeland. Fully aware that a fate far worse than death awaited them there, the terrified assassin begged King Grey to spare his family. In a ruthless display, King Grey personally slaughtered the man's wife and daughter right before his eyes, a chilling act of twisted mercy that even prompted the assassin to thank him for his mercy. Fast forward to the present. Arthur is now 4 years old and spending time with his father, Reynolds, who gifts him a pair of matching combat gloves just like his own. However, Arthur declines the gloves, opting instead for his wooden sword. He believes that due to his small stature, the gloves would only shorten his reach and put him at a disadvantage. Reynolds doesn't argue. He simply smiles and continues with their usual combat training. But today isn't like the others. In the midst of sparring, Arthur reveals that he's learned to channel mana into his sword. With one sudden reinforced strike, he shatters Reynolds' sword. For the first time in his life, Arthur wins, leaving Reynolds completely stunned and unprepared for his son's rapid growth. Later, at dinner, Reynolds decides it's time to secure a proper instructor for Arthur, realizing that without one, he might be hindering his own son's progress. Arthur's mother Alice opposes the idea fiercely, knowing that getting a tutor would force their little boy to leave their peaceful hillside home and venture alone to the city at such a young age. Reynolds was sure Arthur needed real magic training, said it'd shape his future. Alice didn't agree, and they started arguing over dinner. In the middle of it, Arthur spoke up. He said they should all go to the city. Reynolds finds a proper tutor. Alice stays close. That way, everybody's good. Without hesitation, both parents agree, and they immediately begin packing for their move to the city. Shortly thereafter, Reynolds' friend group and adventuring party known as the Twin Horns arrives in person to escort Arthur and his family to the city. Arthur introduces himself to them, and their leader, Adam, remarks that they've met before, although he assumes a kid like Arthur wouldn't remember. Still, Arthur recalls everything vividly, especially the time he blew up the entire house. Back then, the Twin Horns came to help rebuild it, and Arthur overheard their conversation. discovering that his parents were once members of the Twin Horns before settling down. Once Adam finishes speaking with Arthur, Angela steps in and basically deploys the airbag on him, the hugs so tight Arthur can't even breathe. Durden quickly pulls him away, and that's when Arthur notices a young woman silently watching him from atop the carriage. She's Jasmine, a somewhat aloof presence who keeps to herself, but before Arthur can dwell on her, Helen approaches and introduces both herself and Jasmine on her behalf. With that, the journey to Xyrus City begins. At the same time, Arthur quietly muses on how primitive this transportation system is compared to his old world, where flying cars were the norm. Even so, he doesn't mind too much, especially with his caring mom by his side throughout the trip. They take several breaks along the way, and during one pause, a pack of wild wolf monsters suddenly attacks, forcing Arthur to confront the true dangers of the outside world. Jasmine steps in decisively and with her daggers takes down the wolves with remarkable ease. Reynolds, Adam, and the rest of the Twin Horns join the fray, and soon they subdue the threat. Watching from the sidelines, Arthur becomes inspired by his companions and eagerly anticipates joining them in the next battle. That same night during a feast, Arthur notices that Alice isn't eating anything. She claims she's full, but something feels off. Soon enough, she spots an injury on Reynolds' arm and hurries to heal him. As she applies her healing magic, the atmosphere shifts. The group becomes cautious, quietly keeping watch to ensure no one is spying on them. It quickly becomes clear to Arthur that these precautions are necessary because healing magic is both rare and highly coveted in this world. By the looks of it, the very reason Reynolds and Alice lived in seclusion on the hillside was to keep Alice's extraordinary abilities hidden from prying eyes. Following the feast, Adam takes Arthur from his parents, eager to spar with the little guy to see if he's as skilled as Reynolds claims. The rest of the group, equally curious about the prodigy's potential, gathers around, forming an unexpected crowd. Only 4 years old, Arthur wonders if none of them are even a bit worried about him. This marks his first sparring match against anyone other than his father. Unlike Reynolds, who trained him with a simple wooden stick, Adam wields a real spear. As soon as the duel begins, Adam wastes no time infusing his spear with mana. Arthur responds in kind but goes one better, channeling magic into his feet to boost his speed dramatically. In that moment, everyone was stunned that a child his age could release such mana. In a flash, he darts forward and lands the first hit before Adam can react, sliding cleanly between Adam's legs and creating enough distance to leave the entire group speechless at his incredible speed and precision. The battle intensifies as the two clash head-on, but the power gap soon becomes undeniable. Arthur soon realizes that his small frame is like that of a balloon and ends up being sent flying by the impact, a sudden reminder of just how light and fragile his current body is during direct combat. Before he can hit the ground too hard, Angela uses her wind magic to gently lower him, softening his fall. Durden quickly intervenes, reprimanding Adam for going too far with a little kid, reminding him that he was supposed to hold back. Adam raises his hands in apology, admitting he got carried away, though he claims it was only because Arthur's technique caught him completely off guard. Deep down, he can't help but wonder what kind of intense training Reynolds has put this kid through to shape him into such a force at only 4 years old. Glancing to the side, Arthur notices Jasmine watching him with a curious look. She asks how he managed that move and begs him to teach her the secret. Seeing the blank look on her face, he concludes that she won't give up until she gets what she wants. The following morning, the family continues their journey and soon stops at a quiet spot where Arthur can continue his training. Adam shows him how to use a spear while Reynolds demonstrates some impressive gym bro moves. Next, Helen takes over and teaches him archery, and in no time, he becomes quite skilled. After finishing all his training for the day, he begins giving Jasmine the lessons she demanded, and she turns out to be a quick study. That night, while Big Kid Arthur is quietly reading a book, Jasmine keeps staring at him as if mesmerized by his non-existent handsomeness, and soon enough, she starts acting like a bit of a stalker. The following day happens to be Arthur's birthday, and Jasmine presents him with a dagger as a gift. To everyone's surprise, she even takes the time to explain how to use it properly. Not long after, Adam decides it's time to move on. Just then, Alice calls out to Arthur, but soon she suddenly feels unwell. When Arthur notices her pain and asks what's wrong, she assures him she's fine, though he isn't completely buying her explanation. As they press on with their journey, they are ambushed by bandits. The family jumps out of the carriage and quickly takes defensive positions. Arrows begin to fly, but Angela manages to shield them all with her magic barrier. Scanning the area, Arthur realizes they are almost completely surrounded. Meanwhile, the bandit leader, a guy with a cube-shaped head, orders his men not to hurt the women and children, explaining that he plans to sell them for a good profit. Before the bandits get any closer, they aggressively charge in. A visibly scared Alice tries to keep Arthur calm, and just in time, Durden blasts the attackers away while Reynolds swiftly deals with them using his fists. When one bandit is about to strike Reynolds, Helen fires an arrow straight through his wicked heart. Adam slices past several bandits with his spear, and Jasmine quickly takes down others with her daggers. Watching this all unfold, Arthur realizes that each member of the Twin Horns is individually very skilled. Still, with the bandits outnumbering them, the odds don't look good. After a fierce fight, exhaustion sets in as the bandits persist in their assault. Eventually, the bandits slam Reynolds into the carriage, leaving him unconscious. This allows the unsightly bandit leader to move closer to Alice and Arthur. Shortly after, Reynolds regains consciousness while they're running out of the carriage. Even in his battered state, he still musters enough resolve to be the man. He urges Arthur to take his mother and run away. Hearing this, Arthur insists on staying to fight alongside them, but his father then reveals that his mother is pregnant. This revelation finally explains the lingering suspicion Arthur had about why his mother always seemed unwell. Reynolds then orders Arthur to leave immediately, trusting that the boy will protect his mother and unborn brother. In a rush, Arthur grabs Alice and starts fleeing. Enraged, the large-mouthed bandit leader barks for his men to stop them. Before things get worse, Reynolds charges at the bandit leader, and just when it seems like Arthur and Alice might be caught, Adam and Jasmine launch knives at the attackers to clear a path. Soon enough, every member of the party bands together to help Arthur and Alice escape while they face the bandits head-on. As they run, Arthur reflects on his dark past. Once he'd stolen souls, and now he's terrified of losing the ones he loves. The very thought of his loved ones being taken away fills him with sorrow, but all his small feet can do is run for his life. After a while, Arthur senses an attack approaching from the mountains. He looks up to see a suspicious man launching a magic strike. Instinctively, he shoves his mother aside, but the magical blow catches him, causing him to lose balance and tumble off the mountain. Determined not to meet the underworld alone, he uses the dagger Jasmine gave him with a string attached and flings it at the enemy. The dagger latches onto the man's leg, pulling him down from the mountaintop. Meanwhile, Durden and Angela try their magic to save Arthur, but he's too far away for it to reach him before he falls. As he descends, Arthur's thoughts turn inward while his mother, watching with outstretched hands, feels hopeless and sheds tears at the thought of losing him. Yet despite the peril, Arthur finds solace in knowing he protected his family even if it might cost him his life. He's bittersweetly sad that he won't get to be the big brother he always dreamed of being. In a surprising turn, Arthur survives the fall. He later wakes up in a terrifying forest, face to face with a massive, fierce-looking monster, a sight that leaves him utterly terrified. After that, in a desperate attempt, he tries sneaking up on the monster to boost his survival odds. But the monster just bats him out of midair and tells him to relax. The monster explains it isn't evil and only wants to be friends, though the last time someone made that claim to me, I ended up doing yoga in a basement with no windows, so I'm not sure Arthur should trust it. Either way, he's badly injured and won't heal unless he eats something substantial. So the monster begins plucking odd-looking fruits from the cave wall. It urges Arthur to eat, but he doesn't trust those strange cave berries and is about to haul himself up to talk his way out. Then his exhaustion hits him like a ton of bricks, and as he fights to stand, he hears a snap in his leg before he breaks down in tears. The monster tells him to cut it out, reminding him that surviving that fall at all is nothing short of a miracle. Arthur has tons of questions, but the monster insists it will only answer if he actually eats the fruit. His stomach protests louder than his doubts, but after popping the first berry in his mouth, he discovers it tastes surprisingly good, like a sweet mix of berries and honey. After polishing off the fruit, Arthur wipes his fingers on his pants and asks if it knows anything about his parents' situation. The monster admits it can't leave the cave to check on them directly. Still, it can see great distances through some magical sense. Then it conjures a glowing, translucent screen that floats in midair. Arthur watches as it reveals his parents fighting and finishing off the rest of the bandits. Seeing them safe and sound makes his heart pound with relief. He can't believe they pulled through. He thanks the monster for giving him the heads up that his folks are doing fine. And since Arthur's gonna be chillin' here for a bit, he figures he might as well buddy up with it. Turns out the monster's name is Sylvia, and she's actually pretty cool. For the next couple days, Arthur kicks back, eats good, and rests up till his injuries get patched. Sylvia stays close, keeping an eye on him the whole time. Soon as he's feeling back to normal, Arthur's ready to bounce and head straight back home. But Sylvia says Arthur wouldn't even make it halfway back home on his own. Right now, he's holed up in her cave on the edge of the elven forest, and this area is crawling with nasty magical beasts and sketchy bandits lurking everywhere. Arthur just isn't ready to handle all that yet. That doesn't mean he's permanently stuck here though. Sylvia can open a dimensional rift, which means she can send Arthur home, or at the very least, somewhere way safer than this forest. It's gonna take a long while for her to get that rift open, though, so Arthur's stuck waiting until then. Since there's not much else going on, he grabs a stick off the ground and starts swinging it around, practicing his sword skills. Days pass by like this, and even though Arthur really enjoys hanging out with Sylvia, he hasn't learned much of anything about her. All he knows is she looks terrifyingly strong. She's clearly hiding from someone, and despite her scary appearance, she's actually incredibly kind. After finishing sword practice for the day, Arthur heads over to his usual rock, sits down, and begins training his mana. Sylvia's impressed that someone as young as Arthur already developed a mana core, but she's certain nobody taught him how to use it properly yet. She holds out her hand, and suddenly a huge amount of mana starts gathering there. Arthur's amazed watching her build up mana while still casting her spell. If he ever mastered something like this, he'd undoubtedly become insanely powerful. But before Sylvia even mentions teaching him anything, she asks Arthur straight up what he's planning to do with all the strength he'll gain from learning this technique. Arthur never really thought about that until now, but when he does, he instantly recalls the bandits who almost wiped out everyone he loves. He tells Sylvia he'll use his new strength to destroy anyone stupid enough to hurt his family. Sylvia isn't thrilled hearing that answer, so she flicks Arthur hard on the forehead, knocking him back. She flat out refuses to teach her skill to someone who thinks that way, leaving Arthur confused as to why she's so bothered. After all, wanting revenge against people who hurt you is just human nature. Sylvia decides to prove a point by lifting her finger and aiming it straight at Arthur's head. She calmly explains that she could easily crack his skull wide open, or she could gently tap him instead. Sylvia gives Arthur the choice, and obviously Arthur isn't looking to die, so he chooses the gentle option. She explains that letting anger and hate drive you might seem easy, but once you give in, your life becomes an empty loop of bitterness. Sylvia doesn't want Arthur throwing his life away like that, so she asks him again what he'll do with the power. Arthur pauses to think once more, this time picturing the smiling faces of everyone he cares about. He finally says he'll use his strength to protect the people closest to him, and Sylvia clearly prefers this answer. At the same time, outside the cave, another monster, who looks a lot like Sylvia, is busy tracking her down and is getting dangerously close. Back in Arthur's past life, he was king, but being king didn't mean he called all the shots. In reality, the senators held the true power, treating Arthur more like their personal war puppet, sending him out whenever they needed ruthless violence. Arthur never wanted to live like that. Snapping back to the present, Sylvia starts teaching Arthur her special mana technique. After demonstrating how it's done, she tells him to try it out for himself. Arthur starts pulling in mana from the surrounding air, and once he gets the hang of it, he uses this energy to power himself up. Immediately feeling stronger, he runs to Sylvia, excitedly thanking her for teaching him something so amazing. But suddenly, Sylvia senses someone approaching and quickly knocks Arthur into a pile of rocks, telling him to keep quiet. Arthur has no clue what's happening, so he peeks out from his hiding spot and sees another creature who looks just like Sylvia. Sylvia clearly recognizes him, surprised he managed to find her here, but he doesn't waste any time, demanding Sylvia come along immediately. Sylvia firmly refuses, so he instantly launches an attack. Arthur wants to jump in to help, but Sylvia's voice echoes in his head, telling him not to worry about her. The monster tries convincing Sylvia it'd be easier to cooperate, otherwise he'll have no choice but to kill her. Sylvia, however, would rather die than listen to him, so she quickly gathers her mana, unveiling her true form. Turns out Sylvia's a dragon, and in this form, her strength is on a whole other level. She fires a massive blast at the other monster, but he manages to block it, warning Sylvia that she's being reckless, especially considering the current state of her body won't allow her to survive using that much power. Sylvia knows she's probably not going to make it through this, but she's accepted it, having already lived a long and fulfilling life. She succeeds in pushing the other monster into a wall, but he isn't finished yet and quickly retaliates, unleashing several powerful blasts towards Sylvia. She takes significant damage, yet right now her biggest concern isn't herself, it's Arthur, because the fight is dangerously close to the spot where she had knocked him. When the monster fires another blast at her, she realizes dodging isn't an option without risking Arthur's safety, so she channels all her remaining strength to intercept it, temporarily freezing time in the process. With everything around them frozen, Sylvia quickly tells Arthur it's safe to come out of hiding. Arthur cautiously approaches, eager to ask Sylvia about everything going on, especially now that he knows she's actually a dragon, but there's no time left for explanations. Sylvia's power to hold time and place won't last much longer, so she urgently needs to get Arthur out of there. She opens the dimensional rift she'd been preparing, but due to her injuries and the rushed nature of the spell, the portal ends up connecting to some random place instead of Arthur's home. She'd wanted to avoid sending him into the dangerous forest, but now there's simply no choice. Still, Sylvia is confident that Arthur can survive on his own and eventually find his way back home using the technique she taught him, so she isn't worried about him anymore. Before sending him off, Sylvia asks Arthur once more what he'll do with his newfound strength. Without any hesitation, Arthur says he'll only use his power to protect his family, an answer that reassures Sylvia he'll never misuse it selfishly. Before he leaves, Sylvia has a few final gifts for him. She forms an egg and a feather right in front of Arthur, instructing him carefully to wrap the egg with the feather and keep it safe. As a final farewell gift, she also transfers her will onto Arthur, creating a mark on his arms. Arthur's confused by suddenly getting 2 full-sleeve tattoos, but Sylvia has no strength left to explain anything further. Sylvia tells Arthur he'll figure out how to use it someday, but sadly, she won't be around to show him how anymore. She also comes clean, apologizing for being selfish because honestly, she could have sent him home to his family from the very start. But having him around was way too fun to give up, and now, because of that selfish decision, Arthur ended up in danger. Arthur feels awful knowing there's nothing he can do to keep Sylvia from dying here, despite everything she's taught him. He doesn't care if she's a dragon, monster, or whatever else. To him, Sylvia's family, plain and simple. Arthur even says she's kinda like a mom, but Sylvia gently reminds him he's already got one of those. Arthur thinks a second, then says she could be his grandma instead. Sylvia definitely wasn't ready for that, but she loves hearing it, asking Arthur to call her grandma again. He happily does. It breaks Sylvia's heart that she won't ever get to see Arthur again, but they're running short on time, so she nudges him toward the portal. Arthur gets the message, takes the gifts she gave him, and starts walking through, but at the last second he hesitates, trying to convince Sylvia to come along. She can't though, and with a heavy heart, she closes the portal, sending Arthur safely away. Time snaps back to normal, and Sylvia takes the full force of the monster's blast. It looks deadly serious. She drops to the ground motionless, but the monster isn't buying it. Sylvia's too strong to die from just one hit, but he makes a huge mistake letting his guard down as he closes in on her. Sylvia uses every last ounce of strength to unleash one final, devastating blast, vaporizing him and everything around for a mile. As Arthur teleports away, Sylvia sends one last message. She reminds him about their earlier talk on the right way to use power. Arthur remembers clearly, but still feels crushed by what happened. Sylvia reassures him the world's a tough place, and these tragic moments happen. That's exactly why Arthur's gotta change it for the better. Arthur doesn't buy it at first, saying there's no chance someone like him could pull that off. Sylvia tells him she's not expecting miracles overnight. Small steps will do just fine. Besides, this isn't Arthur's first rodeo running the world. Sylvia knows all about his past life as king, and even though she didn't agree with how he handled things back then, she's confident that if Arthur keeps hate out of his heart this time, he'll grow into a great king who makes the world a better place. A bit later, Arthur wakes up on the forest floor, promising himself he'll keep Sylvia's request. But first things first, he's got to figure out how to get himself out of this forest.